My name is Kirk, and I'm an alcoholic. And thanks, Chad, for that introduction. Yeah, it's true. And sometimes I wish it weren't, but, it's what got me here, and getting here is probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Man, there's a lot of people out there. I think we could fit more people in here if we got rid of these tables and just put chairs up here. What do you think, Frank? Never mind. In some regards, I have not changed. I'm irreverent. I put on a tie and a shirt, and I wear flops. But that's just me. It doesn't mean I'm well. I just don't drink and do other things differently. So, first of all, my sobriety date is December 27th, 2005. Which, really isn't that long ago, and it doesn't seem like it's that long ago that I was just a mess, really, really a mess. But 11 years, it just kind of flies by. It's pretty cool. And this is my home group, the Keeping It Sober group. For those of you who are visiting, we meet Tuesdays at 8 o'clock for an open discussion meeting, and obviously Saturday at 8 o'clock for a speaker meeting. And we welcome you all. And it's my home group, which I try not to miss those 2 nights of the week as a rule. But it's so much more than that. I need to be more than just a member of a home group. I have to be active in that home group. I found over my career of being around AA and being in AA is a huge difference. And so I've tried to hold a service position every year, I guess, or every cycle since I've joined this group 10 years ago. So let's get down to it. Our stories disclose in a general way what we were like, what happened, and what we're like now. And what I was like, I was just a screwed up little kid, I guess, and for no reason. I wasn't born with any birth defects or anything like that, so I can't blame some of my behavior on that. I came from a very loving family. My parents loved, I have 4 brothers, and they loved us to death, and they would do anything for us, and they did. And I was the 3rd of 5 children. So I'm the middle child, and some psychiatrists think that that's the problem child. And in this instance, they may be right. But I never did anything god awful or anything like that. I always was a prankster. But I was. My parents were kind of disciplinarians. They expected us to behave. Mind them. They sent us to private schools for a while. We were supposed to listen to what the nuns said. And I've got 2 older brothers. I had to listen to what they said. And I am built where, recalcitrant is the word. It's stubbornly opposed to authority and guidance. And I hated being told what to do. And it seemed like everyone that I came in contact with was telling me what to do. So, as a kid, I had everything I needed, probably not everything I wanted. I'm, selfish and self-centered, and very materialistic still. But I never wanted for anything, really. But on the inside, I just, deep down, I couldn't wait for the day that I could get out and do exactly what I wanted to do, And so, there was alcohol in our house. My father entertained a lot in his business, and it was really cute for the kids to bring cocktails out to the guests, or to go get a beer for Dad when he's sitting in his easy chair, and but I don't think I ever saw them drunk. And I should say I do. One of my other brothers is an alcoholic, so 2 out of 5. 40%. I guess it's genetic in my family. I had a grandfather who died as a direct result of this disease also. So that's how I got it. It doesn't matter. I have it, and it really doesn't matter how I got it. But I do believe that I inherited disease. Anyway, the first time I felt the effect of alcohol, it was. I'll never forget it. I was really young. And I know I was really young because I had my pajamas on, and the pajamas had feet in them, so, and I don't wear those today. So. My dad and a couple of my brothers are in the living room watching TV. My mom wasn't home, and he said, "Kirk, will you go to the refrigerator and get me a beer?" And I said, "Sure, if I can have one." And he just goes, well, yeah, drink it in the kitchen and don't tell your mom. So, I ran to the fridge, got his, and I went back in the kitchen, and I opened this can, and it's this can of Hams, and it came in this little metal keg-like thing. And I opened that sucker and drained it, and, I didn't get sick, I had belch, but, and as a 7-year-old kid or however old I was, I didn't realize the anxiety, the frustration, the fear, all the stuff that was inside of me that I wasn't happy about. But from the top of my head down to my toes, all of that disappeared, and this stuff was magical. What does Dr. Bob call it? He calls it the great panacea for all human ills. And for me, that's what alcohol was at that moment, and stayed that way. It was that panacea for me for many, many years. And, I did not, become a daily drinker from that point on. I didn't have another drink for quite some time. But what did happen, I logged that memory into my mind and said, Kirk, this will be, something that will get you through an awful lot of stuff at a later date. And so, and it did. And it wasn't really until high school that I really drank on a regular basis. I always had this need or desire to be popular, to be, part of. From the get-go, I've heard it said many times by others. I always felt apart from and less than. In every situation, at home, at school, I was that person that was continually alone in the crowd. I don't feel that way now. So I feel comfortable when I come into this room, but there's still times that happens. Anyway, so I so wanted to be popular and to be well liked, and I kind of, when I got to high school, I kind of became a chameleon in that I had friends in all the different cliques, all the stoners, all the, the jocks, all the, every circle, I had friends in. And, I really, but even though I was hanging around with those people, I still wasn't part of that group for whatever reason in my mind. Enter alcohol. Friday night, was, I grew up in the Midwest, and there's not an awful lot to do other than to drink on weekends. And, football games in the fall, and we'd go skating or skiing in the winter, and, in the summer go to the, I grew up in Lake Michigan, or Lake Huron and Lake Michigan, so, go out on the boat, and, just drinking was always a part of that. I mean, I just loved it. So in high school, before my freshman and sophomore year, I worked at this little store down at the corner that sold beer and wine, and I had access. I kind of pilfered a little bottle here and there out the back door, and we would go out, and I couldn't wait for Friday night. It, like Richard likes to say, it allowed me to go out and play. It really did. All my inhibitions ran wild. I could talk to females, unbelievable, and I was a god-awful drinker from the get-go. I was a blackout drinker, and I would get sick every time, and my parents expected me to, if I wanted something more than what they were willing to provide, they expected me to earn money to buy it. So I was always working. I worked at this corner store, and I mowed lawns in the summer, and I can remember so many mornings pushing that lawnmower and having to stop and go puke in the bushes because I'm hungover from the night before, from the Friday night before, and then Saturday afternoon, can't wait to go out and do it again, and because it was that what alcohol did for me then, it empowered me. It allowed me to do things that I was too afraid to do otherwise, and empowered me to a point that my grades in my freshman and sophomore year in high school were average. And after I became kind of a regular drinker, and like a weekend drinker, I got straight A's my junior and senior year. I mean, I did it backwards. I did everything my parents said. I wasn't a class skipper or anything like that. I went to school. I took the classes I was supposed to take. I did okay, but I became smarter in my own mind, and so alcohol was my solution without a doubt. And there weren't really until my senior year in high school any repercussions, any negative consequences from drinking. It was around graduation that I did put my dad's Thunderbird in the ditch. That wasn't too cool, but I lost my license for 3 weeks, and so no big deal there. And then it's time to move on and go to school, and it was a given that I was going to go to college because my two older brothers did, and I didn't want to be the loser of the family. And my two older brothers are very, very intelligent, and I always followed in their shadow, and I hated that. So it was expected that I was going to do something. I wasn't sure. My dad always asked me, well, what do you like to do? And I said, well, I like to hang out at the golf course. And he said, well, you can't really make a living doing that, but that's what I do now. I hang out at the golf course, and I've done it all my life. So, and I guess, that irreverent streak in me always wanted to prove my father wrong, but he was always right, unfortunately. So anyway, I go to school, and I'm in this curriculum that, I'm on campus for 6 months, and I'm sent out into the real world to work for 6 months at a country club or a golf facility. And so here I am, I'm 19 years old, and I end up in Miami, Florida, and I am on my own. Life is wonderful. I mean, there's a dog track, there's Hialeah, there's golf, there's a bar that's open all night long, a block from where I live, and I'm just loving life, and couldn't be happier. And, I had arrived. I really did. And because I'm holding it together, I go to work, I do a good job, I get good reviews from my boss, but I get to do all this stuff, and I kind of have all this freedom that I always wanted, and life is wonderful. So I did that for 4.5 years, and man, I didn't want to graduate because school was fun for me. But alas, you got to go out in the real world, and so I do, and I'm really, really gung-ho on making a mark in the world. I'm going to be, the best I can be wherever I go, and just be, a real positive influence to those that I come in contact with. It's kind of how I was brought up too, and I've always been kind of an introverted person, shy, but I always I'm kind of like a closet extrovert. I want to be, I want to be in the spotlight, or I want to be on stage, but I'm afraid to be in the spotlight. I just always vacillating between finding a comfort zone. And so anyway, I'm out there doing my thing, and I get this job in Wisconsin, and I'm working for this guy, and it's a great facility. wonderful membership. I really enjoyed it the first couple years I was there. The third year I was there, I started to become disillusioned with life. And, my drinking, at that point, I had 3 rules. One, you don't drink at work, you don't drink before 5 o'clock, and you try and take 1 day a week off from drinking. That third rule went out the window pretty soon because I could never figure out which day was the best day to not drink. There wasn't a good day to not drink, so that one went out the window. But I could turn the escape on and off. And the third year I'm working for this guy, I'm looking at the car he drives, I'm looking at the car I drive. He's making a lot of money, and I'm making nothing. I'm making him look really good, and I'm just really, really disillusioned with life, and to the point where I just kind of said, screw it. I'm going to, I've had it with this place, and I started to break the other 2 rules. I had a couple beers with lunch, and the members would ask me to go play, and I'd have cocktails with them while I'm out on the golf course, and I know I'm doing the wrong thing, which makes me feel even worse about myself, but I kind of didn't care. And at the end of that summer, I got my first DUI, and now I go from a disgruntled person in my mind to a real bad person, because I wrecked my car, I wrecked someone else's car, I had to spend the night in jail, heaven forbid, and I have to face, it's a real small town. Everyone knows what happens. So I'm really embarrassed and all that. And the way I deal with that type of guilt and shame is to drink more and to not only that, but to move. The geographical, let's get out of here. There's got to be greener, grass is greener somewhere. And so I did. And I moved here because one of my winter stops was here for 6 months, and I was, and this is really in terms of drinking and my life and the fiasco that was about to begin, where it all started. I offered 2 jobs, and one was really a great job, a lot of responsibility. With that responsibility came, the expectation that I would act professionally, which means you don't drink all day long, you don't show up drunk to work. And the other job was to work for my buddy down the road, and in his back office there's a refrigerator and it's full of beer, and you can, as long as you show up and do what you're supposed to do, you can drink there. So I chose option B, and I knew I was making the wrong decision, but not only in terms of that job, but also in terms of I crossed the line there. I know I drank alcoholically from the get-go. I love the effect produced by alcohol right from the very, very start. And once I started to drink, I didn't want to stop. That was right from the very first time I drank. But this time I crossed the line where I no longer fought escape through drinking, but I embraced it. And wow. Every decision that I made for the next, at that point would have been 5 years, was based on how that would affect my drinking, and so I worked for my buddy for a couple years, and he finally said, "Kirk, you're doing yourself and me no favors. It's time for you to move on." And I said, "Thanks, because you're right. It is time for me to move on." So here we go. I moved to Chicago and had a really good job, and I was drunk every day on the job at that place. Never got fired. No one had really ever said anything to me about it. These are all people. I must have done something right somewhere along the line, because people did like me. They trusted me. They appreciated what I did for them. Whether or not they were afraid to say, man, you're a drunk or whatever. No one ever said that, you know. They just, I guess, accepted the fact that that's the way Kirk is. But so, you know, I made it through that summer. I moved to Florida, working with some buddies. Had a really lot of fun, but what a wasted winter that was. Moved to Milwaukee the next summer, and I got my second DUI that summer. And by this time, I am really full of, you know, not self-hatred. I was full of self-loathing by that time. I really hated what I had become and what I had done. And the second DUI was almost 5 years after the first one, so it was treated as a second offense, so that meant mandatory jail time. I had to spend 7 nights in jail, which again is no big deal, except for my psyche, for my, you know, in my mental wellness. Man, I was really, really down on myself and couldn't wait to get out of there. And I went back to Florida and tried to work one more winter. I'm working at Disney World, and you know how hard it is to go to work drunk at Disney World and pull it off. That's not easy. You got Mickey getting dressed over here and some princesses over there, and here I am. And I'm like, oh Christ, what am I doing here? You know, so I floundered at that job for a few months, and just one day I couldn't make the call. I just called in and I said, look, thank you, but I can't do this anymore. And they said, what, you can't come into work today? I said, no, I can't work anymore. You know, work was just getting in the way of my drinking, and that was the bottom line. So I quit. And, you know, the only downside to that was that, you know, no income, you know, and I mean, how are you going to get, you know, thank God, you know, I didn't do some crack or heroin or something like that where you need a boatload of money. You know, I just needed, you know, $20 a day could get me smashed to where I wanted to be, you know, but coming up with that wasn't easy. So, you know, the safety net, mom and dad, we'll call home. You know, Mom, and I always call when Dad's not going to be home. You know, Mom, I need money for rent, you know, so every day I go to the mailbox and you know, the letter comes, and here it is, you know, and it wasn't a lot of cash like I was looking for. It was a one-way plane ticket home, and you know, so the gig is up. You know, I'm like, this can't be good. You know, and actually it was a blessing, but at the time it was like my worst nightmare. You know, I had to face the fact, and up until that point, I knew absolutely, positively nothing about the disease of alcoholism. I knew I drank a lot, but to me, my misconception of an alcoholic was a destitute person who's living in a cardboard box in some alley drinking a bottle of cheap wine out of a paper bag. That's an alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm loitering on my buddy's couch, you know, with no job, but I'm not an alcoholic. But you know, and their idea was a 28-day treatment facility. And when I got off that plane from Florida back to Michigan, and my parents knew what was up. All those legal things that were following me around, somehow or another, copies of that got sent to my parents' address, and I had been having issues with my stomach. I thought it was just an ulcer or something. It had nothing to do with drinking. The doctor kept saying, "How much do you drink?" And I said, "No, I'm just throwing up blood. I don't know what's wrong." You know, and so they got records of the hospital from the emergency room and whatnot. So, you know, so I get off this plane, and there's my mom and dad, and the look on my dad's face is disgust, you know, and the look on my mom's face is, you know, terror, you know. Physically, I wasn't doing too well at the time, obviously, and, you know, I'll never forget that day. So I go to my one and only treatment facility, and I get home on like a Tuesday, and the bed doesn't open up till Friday, and I told my mom, I said, well, if they don't want to let someone else take it, that's fine. No. No, you're going. So, and I didn't know what to expect, and so Friday, I started my Friday like I started every other Friday, getting drunk. By the time I get to this treatment facility, I'm smashed at noon, and I guess I didn't want them to have any wrong ideas about my condition. The doctor looks at me, he gives me a couple Librium and go to bed. And, I went to my first AA meeting that night, and for the first time ever I said, my name is Kirk and I'm an alcoholic. And I did it because I was the last one in the circle. Everyone else said it. I thought, if you don't say it, you get kicked out or something. So I said it, but I kind of meant it too. Somehow or another, I just knew that was the thing, And what I learned in that facility was, A, I'm an alcoholic, and at that time, B, I wasn't ready to stop. I realize now that all the education and the being confined isn't going to help Kirk if Kirk doesn't want to stop. So, after I got out of that place, I didn't drink for like a year and a half, and life got better. Physically, I got better. I got another job, no problem. On the inside, I was okay. I took the first half of the first step. I admitted I was powerless over alcohol. I was an alcoholic. I read Bill's story, and I said, boy, that guy's an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic. I couldn't lie about that one. The second half of the first step, can't manage my own life? Baloney. Watch, And so here I go, and I'm off, and I can't manage my own life. I can say that now, and it took me a long time to admit that part. The way I started drinking again, I was out in Arizona having dinner with this girl, and she ordered wine with dinner, and just out of the blue, she said, aren't you going to have a glass of wine? And I said, yes, I am. And that was it. 2 days later, I was leaving Arizona, driving back here, and one of my best road trips ever. Gosh darn it, I get encumbered with my stories. I forget about the recovery. But anyway, that road trip back started with wine coolers in Arizona in the back seat. And I don't know why. I thought that didn't count. Like, that's not real drinking. And, and then I started drinking beer, but I had to stop and go to the bathroom too often. By the time I got to Texas, I had the bottle of vodka, and it was under the seat. And now we're road tripping. Now we're making headway. And that exemplifies the progression of my drinking. In one road trip, that's how quickly I did it. And I was, in a couple weeks, I was worse, drinking more than I was before I went to rehab. And throughout the next few years, I floundered miserably. I quit for a couple times. One time I quit because I was engaged to be married, and the girl I was engaged to, her father said, you can marry my daughter if you stop drinking. And so I stopped. I didn't do anything in terms of recovery. I didn't go to any AA meetings. I just stopped drinking. And, as soon as that girl called off the wedding 2 months before we were to be married, I was drunk that day. I was just kind of waiting for the shoe to fall. And that drink I talked about a couple of days ago that lasted 5 years, that, took me to a new low. Just when I'm playing this AA limbo, how low can you go? And, and it's not only the amount of drinking, you can only drink so much, and now, my drinking, when it empowered me earlier, now it's just helping me to cope with the miserable state of my existence. And I wasn't coping well. I wasn't managing well. I became homeless. I was living in my car. I had a great idea, though, during that run. One day I had the moment of clarity. My solution was to join the yacht club. I was in Rhode Island. I was in Rhode Island. The water's right there. I'm going to winter in North Carolina. Join the yacht club, get a boat. I'll drive the boat down to North Carolina, and I can sleep on the boat. Well, I joined the yacht club because they had a brand new clubhouse right on the water, and the drinks were cheaper than anywhere else in town. That's why I joined the yacht club. The other part never came to fruition, but it was a great plan, And 2 years after that, I somehow got another job, and I got intervened by 4 of my friends. They just said, look, Kirk, you're killing yourself, and we can't stand to watch it. We think you should go back to AA, because they'd known me pretty well and knew that at some point in my life I had tried AA. And I said, okay. And I went 2.5 years without drinking. And I did attend meetings regularly. What I didn't do is get any farther than the first half of that first step. I never took a step. I had a sponsor, but the sponsor I used to go out to dinner with on Friday nights. Nothing bad about him. The bad was on me, that I never wanted to do anything to recover, really, because, again, in the back of my mind, I knew there was going to be a day that I drank again. And that day came when one of those people that intervened me, he was like my surrogate father. He passed away, and within a week of that, I quit my job in Rhode Island. I moved back here, and I was drunk a week after I was here. And this started the final, my last 5-year drink that I had. I tried working a little bit, but really it interfered with my drinking. One day, the last real job I had, my friends here said, you're crazy. You need to see a psychiatrist. And I said, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll see a psychiatrist. So I go to the psychiatrist, and I get prescribed all these things, Valium and Xanax and all this stuff. And all the bottles of pills had the martini glass with the red circle and the red stripe through it. And I'd look at that like, well, better not drink it with the vodka. So I took those pills with beer. And one morning, I'm getting ready to go to work, and I'm having my breakfast of the 3 pills and like 5 Power Slam beers to go to work. And I get in the cab, and because I'm not driving, of course, and I don't have a car. I get in the cab, go to work, and I come to in the detox facility over at the hospital. Don't know what happened to work. I blacked out, passed out, and I don't know how, but I lost that job, which was a blessing. Now I didn't have to go to work and worry about all that stuff. There's one less thing to worry about. But again, so here I am. The last 3 years of my drinking were of the third stage of my drinking, and that was the only way I could tolerate my miserable existence was through oblivion. The only reason I drank was to black out and pass out. That's the only way I could stand what was going on with Kirk. And, so I'm like 3 years unemployable. Through the largesse of my mother, my mom was my biggest enabler. She loved me almost to death. She paid, for a place for Kirk to live for quite a long time. And, finally, it's Christmas, 2005, and I'm about to become homeless in Pinehurst, North Carolina in the winter, and I just knew in my mind that I'm not going to make a good homeless person. I've always had the creature comforts, and me living out. And I actually went out in the woods. I'm staking out all these places, and everywhere I look, I see a cop go by, and I'm like, "There's nowhere to go around here. I nowhere to hide." So somehow or another, I don't know where the phone came from. There's a phone in my hand, and my mom's on the other end, and she said, "Look, I'm going to give you one more chance. You come home, you go back to AA, you don't drink, and you do it right this time, or I want nothing to do with you." And, I couldn't believe my mother was saying that to me, and I knew she meant it. And, I'm at this point, I'm throwing up blood again. I'm not well. I am tired. I'm defeated, and for whatever reason, I said okay, and my brother came and picked me up. So this alcoholic it was never my idea to stop drinking. I never got on my knees and asked God for help. I never even thought to do that. As our literature talks about, I was as desperate as only the dying can be. The only reason I did it is because I couldn't, I knew when I stopped drinking, I couldn't stand the way I felt. So I was caught in between that rock and a hard place. If I don't drink, I'm a goner. If I do, I'm a goner. What do I do? And so I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and the most profound thing I ever said in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, it was like New Year's Eve. I finally felt well enough to go to a meeting. I said, "My name's Kirk, I'm an alcoholic, and I need help." And that was really the only white chip that I've ever sincerely picked up, because at that point I surrendered. I was willing to do something differently, and it was because of the pain. The pain was my motivator. I could not stand the guilt, the frustration, man, oh man, the despair, the abject fear. It just ruled me. And, so for this guy, when I surrendered, there was no pink cloud. I mean, it was just my first few months of recovery weren't joyous and happy and free. They were miserable because I was miserable. But I stuck with it because I could see, in the second step, my sponsor up in Michigan, he one day we're at breakfast, and this is early when we were together. He just looked at me and he said, "Do you pray?" And I looked at him like with this quizzical look, like, what has that got to do with anything? And he said, "I'll take that as a no." He said, "You better start." And I was born Catholic. I was an altar boy, believe it or not. I knew all my prayers in Latin. And, I just looked at him and said, I don't know really what to pray for or how to pray. He goes, "Did you have a desire to drink today?" And I said, "No." He goes, "That is a gift." He goes, "You go home tonight, get on your knees and say thank you. And tomorrow morning, when you get up, get on your knees and ask God if he'll do that again for you." And I've done that just about every day. I can't remember the last time I didn't do that, and it works. And that for me, that was the greatest gift that this alcoholic could have received, because I was driven by the obsession to drink, that mental obsession, the physical compulsion. I mean, I didn't want to drink, I had to drink, and if I wasn't drinking, I was thinking about how to do it. And for that to be removed, and I never asked for it. That was the greatest gift I've ever been given. And that sponsor, he gently kind of worked with me, and he could see that I was not a happy camper, and so he was. I think he arranged it. He said, "It just so happens next Saturday there's a workshop on the 4th step," and he said, I think you better go. And I go, okay, if that's what we do, that's what we do. And I went, and, I knew what it was about. Back in the treatment facility, eons ago, I had kind of done a partial, kind of half-ass, fourth, fifth, eighth, and ninth step with my parents. And so I knew what was coming, but they gave me this outline. And this outline, I'm methodical and kind of follow a logical pattern, believe it or not. And so I got this outline, and I'm thinking, oh, this is great. And it does come right out of the book, and when we were in the resentment section. And it goes, list your resentment, the one that's right, the biggest one you can think of. And, go ahead. Go off on this person or this institution, just let them have it, write as much as you want. And so I did, and it all stemmed, I don't have to do a fifth step up here, but it stemmed from a relationship. And anyway, so I go off and I'm writing all this stuff, and I go across, and I learned later you're supposed to go down, write all the resentments, then go to the next one. But anyway, so I'm is this imagined or real? And it was friggin' real, man. This is not in my mind. And but we get over to column E, and column E says, okay, now where were you at fault? What was your part in all this? And I'm like, my part? What do you mean, me? No, this guy. Didn't you read the first part? I'm talking to this outline, and I had a moment of clarity, and for me, this is where the process made sense. Yeah, I looked at my part in that relationship, and it was selfish, and I'm like, oh, shoot, So obviously, the next resentment I wrote down, I wasn't as harsh or severe on that person because I knew that column E was coming again, and I was going to have to look at my part of that one too. So, but what an eye opener, and my entire life, I was the victim. If only I had this job, if only I had this car, if only I had this or that. It wasn't about that, I was searching for all these things, and the real happiness and joy and freedom is found within, and I never would have gotten that on my own, ever. I needed Alcoholics Anonymous for that. So now it's time to do my fifth step, and I had moved from Michigan back down here. So I get a new sponsor, and I choose my new sponsor because I know that I'm going to have to share my fifth step with him. So I choose a guy that I kind of know about his past, and where he had been and what he had done was a lot more unsavory than what I had done. So I'll look like an altar boy compared to this guy, So, but this man, what a great guy. And I took my fifth step on the golf course, of course. He was a golf fanatic, and he goes, come on, let's go play golf. I said, but I've got to get this done. I mean, now I am driven. I've got all this stuff on paper, and this is, I have a feeling once I spit this out, things are going to be better. And I couldn't wait to do it. And he keeps postponing it. And I said, come on, John, let's get this done. He goes, okay, we'll go play golf tomorrow. And he slow played me again. He waited till the back nine to do it. And then all of a sudden we pull off. There's no one else in the golf course. It's January, and it's about 38 degrees. So he goes, okay. And he shared with me a couple things from his story. And I'm like, wow, man, I don't know if I would have told anyone that. What he did was he made it kind of easy, made it easier for me to share what haunted me, and so I found, for me, taking that fifth step that day, boy, it was just so relieving, so therapeutic, so cleansing that, I was ready really to go on now, and 6 and 7, in the 12 and 12, it talks about the sixth step being the step that separates the men from the boys, And that's literally for me, you know. All of my childlike emotions had to be cast aside. And for me to move on and act like I'm supposed to be acting. And you know, I really didn't know what's expected of me now, but the 7-step prayer pointed that out very vividly. I'm supposed to be more service to my fellows and God. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, I guess. I don't know what that entails, but all right, so here I am. What do I do? You know, and right away, it's pointed out in the 9th step that, you know, for me to be of service or value to my brothers, I can't I've got to be able to face them. I can't run, you know, have something to hide from them. So I've got to make these amends, you know, and you know, set myself free, and make myself free. And so the amends process helped me to, you know, be even more free, you know, to be able to walk down the road and not fear that oh my God, that guy, I've got to run to the other side of the road, or, you know, hide behind the bread in the grocery store. You know, what a wonderful feeling that was. 10, 11, and 12, you know, for me, this has become, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous is so much more, and I love this room, you know. I loved it from the first time I came in here, even though I didn't have a desire to stop drinking. You know, the heat was on, everyone that cared about me wanted me to come here, and I walked in through that door, and man, I was shaken because I hadn't had a drink in a couple hours. And the relief came when I saw there was a back door. I just did a walkthrough, you know. So I love this building for that reason right from the get-go. Now I love it for other reasons. You know, I love to come and stay. I don't love this part of it, but you know, I'll get over that too. So, you know, for me now, this is, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous. It isn't this building. You know, it isn't the 12 steps. It isn't this book. You know, it's a way of life. And man, what an order. I mean, you know, it's so much easier for me to come in here and to act somewhat spiritual, to be benevolent, to do what's asked of me here, you know, but I don't always carry that with me. My workplace is probably a prime example. I get irritated at others, you know, and I guess that just makes me human. So every day I've started, you know, to really ask to help me stay calm during the day, to stay grateful, to stay positive. So for me now, this has become, you know, a spiritual journey, and wow, you know, I realize, you know, how lacking I am in that regard. So it gives me something that I will never graduate. I will never have a master's in recovery. You know, I am always taking classes. I am always trying to do something to enhance my spiritual condition, you know, and that comes in so many forms. And you know, the best thing that I've found is that I really don't have to seek. If I earnestly ask in the morning, you know, God will have me do today, you know, what you will, you know, help me to do what it is that I need to do. I'm presented with all these things that I don't feel like doing, and I know those are the things that I need to be doing. You know, so it's a bunch of, all the crap that I have to endure during the day is exactly what I need to do, you know, and so it becomes a Nike commercial. I just do it. You know, I'm out of time. I've rambled too much and really have, you know, I had a wonderful speech all written out a couple weeks ago, and I left it at home. I think you can tell. You know, and the one that I come up with on the way home in the car is going to be even better than the one I wrote before. This one kind of is what it is. You know, but I always like to close. You know, I really, you know, and I am a firm believer that we are more alike than we are unalike. I really, really believe that. But, you know, I've never really heard anyone share a story where I say, that is my story. except there's one in the back, and this is that book I got from the treatment facility in 1988. It's a third edition, and I still have it. I've moved like 30 times since then and now, and this is probably the only thing I have from that time to now. Anyway, the story in the back of this thing, and it's from the section, They Nearly Lost It All. And I don't even have to read it, I know it. And the guy closes with, so there are only two sins, and one is to interfere with one's own growth, and the other is to interfere with the growth of another, and there's only one law. And that is the law of love, And I love you guys so much, and thanks for sharing. Let me share.